Hi guys, good afternoon. As promised, my little girl Frankie is featuring in the videos from now on. Although she probably won't be able to sit on my lap for too much longer as she grows, but I'm sure she'll try. Now guys, today is a bit of a sad topic. We're going to talk about the end of a dog's life and when to know that it's the right time to go, and a little bit about palliative care. So we've had Jess write in a few weeks ago about Freddie with a slip disc. Then we've had Bree, who had some anxieties about her girl, her female Labrador, Jet, who she notices getting older and is slowing down. And she was saying how she just can't even imagine life without Jet and how hard that grieving and saying goodbye period is going to be. And then we had Karen, who wrote in last week with a specific question and asking for this video. And she sent in a photo of her two old boys, Kruger, who's 14 and a half, and she also has Nibs, who is 12. So yeah, I'm feeling a bit sad already that we're going to talk about this, because this is the reality of loving dogs. You know, one day we are going to have to say goodbye to them. And as you can see, I'm sat here bonding tremendously with this girl. And the reality is they have a shorter lifespan than us. And that means that one day we then have to say goodbye. The last euthanasia I did about a week or so ago was particularly upsetting. That was a mum and a dad there with their two boys, and the boy, I want to get down. The boys were about 12 and 10, and the grown-ups, the mum and dad, were telling me that when they got their dog as a puppy, the boys were toddlers. And that kind of hit me, because I realized that could be, you know, that will be us fast forwarding when our boys are 10 and 12. They will be having to put down Frankie. So yeah, that was a really upsetting euthanasia. And I think as soon as you see yourself in someone else's shoes, it just hits you even harder. But my nurse cried in that euthanasia, and then I ended up crying, and it was awful. And it's just a reminder to me that no matter how many times we as vets and vet nurses go through these euthanasia procedures, they don't get easier, and they're just as moving and upsetting to say goodbye, even when they're not our own pets, you know, when our clients' pets. So today we're going to talk about euthanasia. It is really one of the most difficult decisions you'll ever make around your pet, and you know, we're kind of caught between this limbo. We don't want them suffering, but we don't want to lose them. We don't want to keep them alive, but we don't want them to have a poor quality of life either. And so there's this internal conflict. And I think a part of being a vet is my role is to discuss this decision-making process. So that's certainly what I do in practice with a lot of my clients. So I'm going to pop together some resources for you and put them in the comments where I can, if I can. I think I can post PDFs in comments, so I will try and do that, you know, with some additional reading that you can have a look at, because the reality is all of you are going to be in this situation at one point or another, even if, like me, you've got a puppy at the moment. And I'm also wanting to go through with you a chart that helps for you to determine when is the right time to consider euthanasia. This is a chart that we use to consider all aspects of a dog's life, and to try and determine whether they are having a good quality of life or if they're suffering. So while I go through that today, it's important to remember that all dogs are different, And so what might be considered a poor quality of life for one dog is not necessarily a poor quality of life for another. So it is all individual, and it is important to discuss your dog's situation, your dog's symptoms, any side effects, and how you're feeling with your specific vet. But my hope is that by doing this video, I can answer some of the questions that have come up in the group about this stuff and provide you with the chart so you can get a better understanding of the general well-being of your dog, your elderly dog, if you're at the point of considering, end-of-life decisions. Okay, so what is palliative care? Palliative care is when we're providing care for our dogs at the point where we've decided that we don't want to continue on with further diagnostics. We don't want to do more surgery or advanced medical treatments and chemo and all the rest of it. Instead, we've made the decision that we would rather just focus on maintaining the dog's quality of life through, say, supportive medications and gentle care and non-invasive therapies instead. So that's what palliative care is, and it comes in a range of shapes and forms. So it can be just basically pain relief, which you will talk to your vet about the most appropriate one. They'll probably want to run a blood test before popping your dog on a pain relief. Common ones are tramadol or non-steroidals like meloxicam. In more severe cases, we use opioids, so that's something you can discuss with your vet as well. But it also includes things like physio and acupuncture and massage and therapeutic laser, and also things like, we discussed in Freddie's video, we talked about changing the environment to make him more comfortable. So that was non-slip flooring, raising his water bowl. It's all about the additional TLC that you'll provide your dog at the end of their life, around helping them eating if they can't do it themselves, helping them to walk if they need help with towel walking or even toileting. And now we all have different philosophies on how far we're prepared to go with palliative care and what's appropriate and what's not, and when the right time is to consider euthanasia. So there's definitely no rules and no generalized advice that I can give. This is a personal decision. But there are some questions and considerations that you can start to think about at any time. For example, when you're thinking about the end of your dog's life, what's most important to you? Is it that your dog lives as long as they can? Or is it that they suffer no pain at all? Or is it somewhere in between there? And it's also important to think about, just your general thoughts and kind of ethical feelings or religious feelings about euthanasia. I would suggest that you consider some of these things that I'm going to talk about even before you go into your consult with your vet, so you have some idea of where you stand on certain topics. So would you consider euthanasia if your dog is feeling pain every day? If pain is part of their life. Would you think about euthanasia if they couldn't urinate or defecate on their own anymore? Or if they were having seizures? What if they had become violent or aggressive and they were unsafe around children? Some dogs in their old age suffer from brain tumors or behavioral changes, which makes them aggressive. And sometimes that's a reason that people feel that the time is right for euthanasia. Other things are like eating and interacting. Does your dog have a condition that seems to be progressively worsening no matter what you do? What about financial limits? Is there the financial aspects that you will want to consider? When you've exhausted your finances, at what point will you then consider the time to be, right for euthanasia? Is that something that's going to determine your decision? And what about if the vet recommends euthanasia? Is that enough for you, or what other considerations do you need? So how do you know when the time is right? Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is you need to find a vet that you like and trust. I've never come across a vet that's not trustworthy. So I think you're safe in finding a trustworthy vet, but you want to like the vet. You want to feel a connection with them, that you can talk openly with them, and that they have your, your best interests and your emotions, that they're considering those as well as the patient. And I would say that when you do speak to your vet, do tell them that you are considering euthanasia, so they know that you're already at a space where you're kind of processing that and considering it. Because sometimes it's hard as a vet to know what a client is thinking if they're not telling us. If you come right out and say euthanasia is not an option or a road I want to go down, I want to do everything I can with the help of specialists to extend my dog's life, then that will be a very different conversation than if you say that you're concerned about your dog's quality of life at home and you're considering euthanasia. So the more information you can give your vet in the beginning about where you stand, the better. It's also a good thing to look at how your dog was acting and behaving prior to their illness or their old age. So, sometimes changes are really gradual, and they're so gradual that they're hard for us to recognize as owners. I've had a client who was going through her phone and she said, "Oh, I just saw a video of my dog a year ago before she had this illness, and it's just such a dramatic change. Now that I see those images and videos of her, I can tell what a decline in her quality of life she's had." So sometimes because it's gradual and we're always there, we don't notice it as much. Another thing that you can do is to think of 3 or 4 things that your dog loves. Things that really make them happy and makes them jump up and have a wag and a sparkle in their eye. And keep an eye on those things and notice whether they are still enjoying those things or not. So it might be that they love the beach. It might be that they love a certain visitor when they come over, or they have a favorite treat, or they love playing fetch with a certain ball. Keep an eye on those things, and if those behaviors are slowing down, or if they're not even there anymore, then that would be a bad sign, obviously, for their quality of life. Because if they're not even interested in the things they most loved, then it's likely that they're not feeling very well. Okay, now let me get up this chart to look over, and then I'll pop this chart in the comments so you can see it yourself. So what this chart has is a scale of quality of life, whether it's poor, or the other end of the scale is whether it's a good quality of life. And it's a survey where you can answer the questions: strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. And by tallying up your results at the end, it gives you an indication on your dog's quality of life and whether you should be considering euthanasia, or maybe it's not necessary yet. Maybe you need to start adding in palliative care. So some of the questions are, does your pet still want to play? Does your dog not respond to your presence or interaction with you in the same way as they did? Does your dog still enjoy the same activities as they did before, or are they hiding away? Has their behavior or their demeanor changed? Do they not seem to be enjoying life anymore? Do they have more bad days than good days? Are they sleeping more than usual? Do they feel dull and depressed? Do they seem to be experiencing pain? Are they panting even at rest? Is there vomiting or nausea? And are they not eating well, or do they only want to be hand-fed or only want to eat treats? If they only want to be hand-fed or eat treats, it is a sign of a poor quality of life. Are they not drinking? Are they losing weight? Do they have diarrhea often? Are they struggling to urinate? Are they not moving normally? Are they not as active as they were? Are they not grooming or cleaning themselves like they once were? That's particularly important for cats, but it applies to dogs as well. Yeah, is their coat looking greasy or matted or rough looking? And how is my dog's overall health compared to when it was initially diagnosed? So they are the considerations on the chart that try and look at all aspects of the dog's life to determine whether they have a good quality of life or a poor quality of life, and in which case whether we should be talking about euthanasia and that being an appropriate kind of step. There is also a whole nother conversation to be had about when you do decide to put to sleep your dog, and some things that can help you around grieving. There are grievance counsellors and psychologists that work just in pet loss, and it is a unique area because sometimes in society it's not acknowledged to be a big loss, but for many of us it's equivalent to the loss of a family member. So it is important to have support. Sorry, I think I'm getting the flu. And also, things like getting their ashes, getting them cremated, maybe planting a tree with their ashes or planting a tree over their grave. These are all things that kind of can help that letting go process, as is walking and exercise and crying and talking to people about it and writing poetry or, whatever you like, a diary, journal entries. Those things can help with grieving the loss of a dog or a family member, as they are to many of us. So I think that's all for today. Frankie's back again. Hello, Frankie. Yeah, it is a heavy one today, and not a conversation that any of us like to have, but it's important, and there are, this time will come for all of us, and it's important to make that decision in the most educated and, well thought out way for the welfare of our pets, really, because that is our responsibility. Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys, and sorry about the heavy video, but I hope that it was helpful. Okay, we will be back maybe tomorrow or the next day with some discussion around hip dysplasia and elbow dysplasia and the environmental impacts that can have, an influence on that disease process. Okay, bye.